together the Akron Rotary Club meeting for today, Tuesday, April the 12th.
I didn't start the recording yet.
That's all okay. We're a little bit behind, so we're going to redeem our time. So we have a really good day planned here. And at this time, I'd like to call Cindy Kane forward for the invocation.
Oh, careful going that way.
Thank you, Steve. Please pray with me. Heavenly Father, we come before you aware of your many promises. We thank you for your impact in our relationships with our families, neighbors, and fellow Rotarians. We thank you for our talents, gifts, and our ability to make a positive impact in our work and in our communities. As Rotarians, we thank you for the reminder of living the four-way test in all we think, say, and do. We ask you to give us wisdom, knowledge, understanding, prudence, and discretion in all of our dealings. Today, we welcome Ren Camacho and pray for his continued success in his work at the Akron Canton Airport. Please bless this food and those who came to share it. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. And to vote today, we've got sunshine outside, so it's marvelous. If you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And now the four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? All right, you may be seated. Miss Snella, you are our official greeter today. So do you want to do it up front here?
Sure. Can everybody hear me? I'll come up front. So we have a lot of guests here today, so that's awesome. So we have some visiting Rotarians, and if you want to do a wave, and if you want to say a few words, we can do that. Claudine Schooley is here. There's Claudine in the back. She's with the E-Club of our world. Don Obermeyer. Don, is with Cleveland?
Cleveland, actually was your guest speaker a few weeks ago. Yep.
Okay, good. And Josh Prest is in the back of the room. He's with Youngstown. So thank you guys for coming. We also have our speaker, which we'll introduce later. Michelle Wilson has a guest, Barbie Obermeyer. Barbie, would you like to say a few words, introduce yourself and your company?
Hi, my name is Barbie Obermeyer and I work for ACE Mentor Program. It's a mentor program for high school students interested in going into architecture, construction, or engineering. Mentors in these firms will go into the high schools twice a month and work with students on an RFP that they present at the year-end banquet. It's actually going to take place on April 27th. And during this banquet, they also will receive money to help them towards college tuition and scholarships. It's a really beautiful program and I'm very happy and blessed to be a part of it. Oh yeah, one of our students at Canton McKinley High School received a special scholarship called the CMIC Scholarship, where he was awarded $20,000 towards his college tuition. He's already accepted into Ohio State for engineering.
And Brian Kima has a guest. Robin, do you want to say a few words?
Hi, I'm Robin Gilmore, Brian's assistant at Kima Travel. Thanks for letting me to come today. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you all for coming.
All right, thank you, Mela. And it's good to see Don and to have Barbie here today. And Michelle, it's great to have you in the house as well. And I know you've been exceptionally busy with all that's going on, in particular, what we know that's happening over in Ukraine. And thank you again, Cindy, for your invocation today. But I know we have a lot of men and women that are praying people, and you're going to want to continue to pray and lift up Ukraine, because there's a new battlefront that is gearing up in eastern Ukraine, all the way from the Donbass region with Lugansk and Donetsk, and up to the city where my family lived for a year back in the late 90s, Kharkiv. And so please keep these dear men and women in your prayers. And a positive note that a friend of ours who actually was running a crisis pregnancy center in the city of Kharkiv, and when she left the city on February 23rd, and the war began on the 24th, she moved west about 6 hours and set up a refugee camp for 65 people, feeding them, providing mattresses to sleep, clothes, medicine. And then when the Russians began approaching, moved out to Romania. And yesterday she came into the United States to be with her son, her daughter-in-law, and her grandchild. And so there are going to be a lot of Ukrainians coming this way. And with that, we have Ms. Claudine Schooley. I'd like to invite you up to share just a couple of minutes what's going on in your world, which is, I know, exceptionally busy.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. Just quickly, our inter-country committee, Ukraine, USA, is very, very active right now. We are taking some contact and helping with different districts in the US. We are helping in different directions. But what I want to tell you today is give you a little update on the global grants, because some of you gave me money and participated to this grant. I can tell you your money will be well used. We are currently redirecting this global grant with Rotary International Foundation, and we are working with a new host in Romania, the club of Alba Iulia, because it was impossible to give away anything to the Kharkiv multinational club, but they are still on board, and they told us, please continue this grant. We need some material for the hospital. So the new grant is going to give some specialized material to the hospital of Kharkiv. It will be sent from Romania directly to Kharkiv. And the second part is we are still doing the pediatric wheelchairs, the CUB. We are going to order a container of 100 wheelchairs that will be shipped to Romania. And we still work with the company Momentum, who will provide some training. So thank you for your participation, and I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you.
And if you've had the opportunity to get Claudine, get to know her like many of us here at the Akron Rotary Club have. She's petite, she's pretty, but don't let that fool you. She is a bulldog when it comes to, and a pit bull when it comes to really latching hold of things that are clearly important and vital. And this work that she's been doing for a few years now with the getting the wheelchairs in Ukraine is more impactful than you could possibly imagine. And so thank you, Claudine, and appreciate your huge heart and how you're touching so many lives, and God bless you. So at this time, I wanted to see if we have any Rotary ambassadors over the last week. Anybody here in the room or online? Okay.
Nobody on that.
No one?
Nope.
All right. Okay, so we're going to move on to Happy Dollars, and I wanted to see over the last week or what's going on in your worlds. if anybody is happy today, and I see a few of you open your wallets. All right, Michelle, Mela, can you pass that other microphone to David so that he can share that with people? All right, Michelle.
My happy dollars are walking right up here to Steve's because I have photos for Steve from way back when Steve,
I
I
cannot
don't know
believe
if
that.
this is an early mission.
No, this is a great picture. Let me show you this
Okay.
one if I may.
So way back, Steve and their church, and I think that's with his, is that?
That's my wife.
Wife, when they went and did work in Kharkiv.
Yes.
Yes, way back.
I don't know
And
how you got that, but that was
somehow
funny.
he shared photos with us when we had been doing our open world leadership program group. And I saved these photos after all these years because I tried to get them back to him and he was
Wow.
gone in Ukraine. And then he was gone for years. And I saved them and saved them and saved them. So many years later, I finally am getting his photos back to him.
I tell you, this is like bringing me to tears. Wow.
So happy dollars for the good work from the people of Akron to Ukraine. And still, this is why our hearts in Akron, Ohio are very generous and kind and with the people of Ukraine. And we do the good work that we do because Akron has been very globally minded and we care. And we want to make sure that lives are better for others, especially right now for Ukraine.
That's great.
Thank you. What a blessing. Thank you.
I have a happy dollar. I just want to, again, make everybody aware, we are going to continue with the Akron Food Bank project, but it will be the third Wednesday monthly going forward, but the third Wednesday in June, we will be getting, I'll be getting something out in May. So just keep that in the back of your minds. So anybody else happy? Thank you.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Two happy dollars today. The first, Cheryl Warren, thank you for sending out that email through Club Runner. Coming up April 30th, we have camp cleanup from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m. We are asking all Rotarians that would like to volunteer to sign up through Club Runner. Should be a lot of fun. When you read that email, a couple items you want to bring, maybe like a step ladder, rake, dust mop, things like that. But it should be a good time. So look forward to seeing everybody April 30th. And the second happy dollar I have is for President Bowie. And Steve, I'm very happy to be in your club. I really appreciate the manner by which you carry yourself. And I think it's so cool, the servant leadership you display. And I'm really happy for the bonds you've created with the 100 Black Men, as well as for your support with the Be the Match program. So I'm happy for you and I'm very grateful for you.
Thank you, Ben. Mela.
Hi, I have two happy dollars. So right before I came here, I met with Kevin Smith at the College of Business at the University of Akron. So we are all set for the scholarship event, awarding the Akron Rotary Club scholarships to about 15 students. So that's coming up April 25th at the College of Business. He's hosting it there. So if you haven't registered, please register. Because it's going to be a great evening honoring our scholarship winners. And I'm happy because it's spring at camp and it looks amazing outside and it's even going to look better once we have our cleanup day.
Thank you, Mela. Global Traveler Lance Kima.
Thank you, David. So, yeah, I'm very happy today. I've got, Mary Lou and I just returned from a cruise of the lower Danube River. It's absolutely gorgeous, but it's not blue. I'll give you that heads up. But I have two happy dollars, one for each of my two favorite travel agents who helped get us there. It was a wonderful time. My other happy dollar is for one of my all-time favorite jokes, which I'll share with you. So a guy goes to the doctor's office and he's going, Doc, I'm going nuts. I've got this song in my head. Wait, by the way, unless you're 50 years old, you probably won't get this joke. So I got this song going around my head. It's What's New Pussycat? And I'm singing it all day long and I can't sleep at night because I keep singing the song. And he says, what do you think's wrong? The doc says, well, I think maybe you have Tom Jones syndrome. And the guy said, Tom Jones syndrome, I've never heard of that. Is that common? And the doctor said, well, it's not unusual.
Thanks for sticking that song in my head.
It's not.
Wait till you hear mine, Joe. No, $5 happy. Great to be here. 3 travel agents supporting Red Camacho from the Akron Canton Airport. It's great to have you here. I've gotten to know Red a little bit because I get to serve on the Akron Canton Airport Travel Agent Advisory Board. It's not quite as sexy as it sounds, but it's great and I love it. So thanks for having me there. And then I do have a sad couple dollars. Some of you may know Bob Haydorn. Bob Haydorn has been very influential with the Rotary Youth Exchange in welcoming students from abroad, high school students to come study here in Akron with host families and all that. And he's served on the district, I believe, Susan, yeah. And he was just diagnosed with, is it pancreatic cancer? I guess it's really, really serious. And over the past 3 days, they gave him a few months now. Now it's quite a bit less. So I actually have a card. I'm going to start up front and I'll pass it around with a pen. If you could just sign it, that would be great. We'll get it to him. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Brian. Susan, come your way. Oh, wait a minute, I must do Dan first, I'll be up front, Susan.
I'm just happy to hear Lance Kima tell a joke.
Amen to that.
Brian. Can I do it?
Susan.
Sorry, it's about Bob. He's the rock in the foreign language, the foreign exchange program. And I guess I can't do this, so.
Anybody else in the room or online, Cheryl?
No one online.
Hey, Brian, can you come up? I'd like to ask you if you would just lead us in a prayer for Bob and for his family.
Please bow your heads with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we do thank you so much for your goodness, your blessings, Lord. Thank you so much for blessing us with Bob Haydorn. Just as Susan said, what a rock he was in the youth exchange program. Thinking of all the lives he's touched, the students he's hosted, the many, many trips to the airport, the many, many overnights at the Rotary camp, leading all the different modules and programs and all those stuff, the ton of paperwork and emails, all this really volunteer work. And you really did bless us with a great man. So we're so thankful for the gift of Bob, and we just pray a blessing over him, over Louise, his wife. So I'm sure this is an extremely hard time for her. And we just pray that you would give them peace, and please help us as fellow Rotarians to be good support to him. Thank you, Father. Amen.
Thank you. I also have $5 happy, and mine are for Don and Barbie and Michelle and for Claudine, and then for all of you. You guys are amazing, honestly. Just the hearts that each of you carry and your commitment just to making your families, this club, and this city, the nation, and the world a better place. And so it's an honor to serve with you. Lastly, before I introduce today's speaker, I want to bring you up to date on the schedule, because you did receive an email this last week. We have a very, very busy April, and it started today with Be the Match over at Akron University. They're swabbing cheeks in order to get more donors in the registry, the National Registry for bone marrow matches. And heard something new last night in a planning meeting for the kickoff of today. And this is most encouraging, that by being a match for someone, we, by having that registry, have the answer to lymphoma, to leukemia, to sickle cell anemia. It's a straight up cure by having that registry. And as we've mentioned in the past, what we're hoping to do is to change a little bit of what the present setup is, in that if you're blessed and you're white, you have a 79% chance that's where the blessing lies of having a match. And as we come down to the Native American Indians, as we come down to Asians, Hispanics, it's like 60%. But when we take a look at the Black population, it's only 22.5%. So this came to us, by the way, because of the wonderful connections in Rotary and the Mentor Rotary Club and Dale Smith up there and their involvement. They have actually run a couple Be the Match programs. And as a result, he reached out to us because he heard of what we were doing with 100 Black men and so on. And thus, over the next 3 days, today at the Polsky Building 10 to 3, tomorrow at the JAR, the James A. Rhodes Arena 10 to 3, and then Thursday at the Student Union right near the Piano Lounge 10 to 3. So we're hoping to get 600 donors during that time. So that's coming up this week. And then next week, as Dan had made mention with the board, we have out at the Rotary Camp, our camp is hosting a number of the parents and the children from the LeBron James residential housing unit known as the Village. And so that's going to be a lovely dinner. There's going to be dinner for the parents, dinner for the kids, and then Dr. Rob has secured someone to share some words of encouragement for about 20 minutes. So that's going to be a great time. Followed by that, we come up the scholarship for our high schoolers. There's a dinner at the University of Akron Business School, and that is on the 25th of April. And if you'd like to attend, we've got 18 Rotarians that have currently signed up, but if you'd like to attend that evening, please go online, and you'll need to do that sometime the next day or two, and to reserve your reservation. Lastly, we have coming up this next week, no meeting here on the 19th. No meeting next Tuesday here. It has been moved instead out to Cuyahoga Falls Sheraton Suites, the District 6630. We're having our district meeting. And if you want to attend, please go online and sign up for lunch at 12 o'clock out at the Sheraton Suites. And I think there's still some available spots for that. The following day is a day of meetings. And if you want to attend there, you can sign up as well. And then coming up, you heard mentioned May the 11th at the camp. We have an exciting day planned for the boards coming together. The Akron Rotary Foundation Board, the club board, and the camp board are meeting from 4 to 6 and continuing the wonderful synergy that we've been building one with another. So that's it. There's a lot going on. Mark your calendars and plan appropriately. And at this time, I would like to call Mr. Thane Billow up. He has a presentation to make.
Lance Kima, if you could please step forward. We do have consequences for telling bad jokes at the club. But in all seriousness, ladies and gentlemen, I serve at the pleasure of the board as the chairman of the Rotary International Foundation Committee. And I think we all know that Lance gives of his time and resources generally in service to the city of Akron. Lance also has equipped $3,000 in donations to Rotary International. So today we'd like to thank him for his continued generosity in service to Rotary, as well as for furthering the cause of Rotary worldwide. So Lance, it's my pleasure to present you with your Paul Harris Fellowship N+2. Fellow Rotarians, I would ask you to join me in thanking and recognizing Lance.
1 second.
Thank you. Smile.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Well, it's just getting better because we are so privileged today to have Renato Ren Camacho, and he is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Akron Canton Airport. And we're pleased to have him here with us today. His core responsibilities include leading a 50-member team of airport employees with strategic planning for the future of the airport and directing all capital improvement programs. Specifically, he ensures the airport is a vital economic engine that increases economic activity and pride to all of us here in Northeast Ohio. He has over 28 years of professional experience in the aviation and transportation engineering sectors and is specializing in program management and customer service. He's implemented over $350 million of federally and locally funded projects for initiatives including runway safety area improvements, master plans, lease negotiations with airlines, new business development initiatives, and major airport infrastructure projects. And so join me in welcoming him here today to share with us. And thank you for all the incredible work that's going on down there. What an awesome little area airport that we can take advantage of. And so thank you so much. And we look forward to what you have to share.
I've put together a presentation. I want to thank Steve and the Rotarians, the Akron Rotary, for the invitation this afternoon, and to kind of let you know what's going on at Akron Canton Airport. For Katie Miller as well in the back, thank you for the invitation. Cheryl and others who extended the invitation. So,
Thank you.
Perfect.
Here we go. So I have again a presentation. Cheryl, if you don't mind.
I will share it.
So there's a lot going on at the airport, as you might imagine. So just a little bit about myself. I'm a civil engineer by trade. I started my career at the New York Port Authority, and that started back in the early 90s. I know I'm dating myself somewhat. And had the opportunity really to look at a variety of facilities. As you might imagine, the New York Port owns and operates the airports, the port facilities, the World Trade Center site, bridges and tunnels in the New York City metro area. And out of all of those, it might have been the smell of the jet fuel or what have you that just grew an affinity for aviation. So I started my career at the New York Port, and then in mid 2000s, 2007 or so, my then ex-wife and I she's a native Clevelander, so that's the title Northeast Ohio. We decided, I should say, better say that Northeast Ohio was where we wanted to call home. We had small children at the time, and they're in their late teens and early 20s at this point. And decided to call Northeast Ohio, make the move to Cleveland, and started my career honing my skills further in aviation, right, with my stint at Cleveland Hopkins Airport. I basically came in as a design engineer and then worked my way up several notches to become the chief of the planning and engineering section, which basically oversaw all of the environmental and the capital improvement program at CLE from 2007 all the way through 2018. I wasn't the decision maker nonetheless at that airport, and there were things that I thought, you know, if I had the opportunity to run an airport, again, further refining and honing my skills, that having the opportunity to stay in Northeast Ohio and provide such, you know, the forthright, if you will, to say that I wanted to give back to the communities in Northeast Ohio, what they've done for me and my family. I was able to put my name in the hat for Akron Canton Airport, and thankful to be at the airport. Next slide, please. So we are, just a little bit about the airport. We are a bi-county organization.
It's working now.
Thank you. We are, four members are appointed by Executive Eileen Shapiro here in Summit County, the other 4 by the Stark County Commissioners. As you see there on the slide, and hopefully the folks on the Zoom call can see this as well.
Thank you.
We are self-sustaining, so all of the revenues and ancillary fees that tenants pay for us, those that rent spaces, the airlines, TSA, they rent space, FAA as well, that all of those revenues that we generate go right back into the upkeep of the airports, plow our runways, pay our light bills, all of those things. And during COVID, which I'll get into a little bit later, we've been really hampered with the ability to do just that. We've been operating at a loss of about $3 million since COVID began. We're hyper-focused on customer service, as you might imagine. That first impression, the moment you leave your home to the moment you get to your gate, we want to be as seamless and as stress-free as we possibly can compared to other airports in the region. And then the last bullet there is our numbers. You can see even pre-COVID, 835,000 or so was actually about half, a little less than half of what we had when Southwest and AirTran were at Akron Can. Those of you who recall those days, we had about 1.8 million compared to 835 pre-COVID. And then you see the numbers to get through COVID has still been a challenge. So we'll probably finish this year roughly about 500,000 passengers, so not quite to where we really want to be, even to a pre-COVID number. Ultimately, we do want to get to those days of AirTran and Southwest where we're nearing 2 million passengers, and there's more work to do, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. There we go. Our mission, vision, and values, it's again hyper-focused on customer service, being fiscally and socially responsible with our interactions with the traveling public, our tenants, our local entities, our chambers and Rotarians like you all, and wanting to ensure that we provide the best customer service possible. You see our values there, our core areas are all about preserving our assets and making sure that the revenues that we collect, again, will go right back into the upkeep for your hometown airport and experience. We also have participated a lot in community engagement events, really bringing people to the airport for reasons other than flying. That's the major premise, right? We get that, but we really want folks to understand that Akron Canton Airport is your community airport. So I asked a question, and I'll ask the Rotarians in the room, who owns the Akron Canton Airport? Did you say you? Yeah. The citizens of the state of Ohio technically own the Akron Canton Airport. So that's through Ohio Revised Code 308 and the formation of an airport authority. Technically, the citizens own the airport. So you own a little sliver of your hometown airport. So our core service area, and not expecting to see this in the level of detail that it is, and apologize for the colors, but basically, folks are willing to drive to the airport, whether you're 30 minutes or an hour and a half away from Akron Canton for a good deal, a good experience, even better. We know it's depending on where you're going, it might be a little pricier, but do you want to travel stress-free? Do you want to pay less for parking? Do you want to walk less to your gate? Do you want a seamless experience? That's what we have to offer at CAK. So we do serve all of Northeast Ohio. We consider ourselves the preferred airport in Northeast Ohio. So, and we're consistently working to improving economic development, whether it's presentations like here today. I'm an advisory board member at Akron Public Schools. We have very good relationships with the city of Akron, and then our counterparts down in the Canton community, as well as Massillon and Barberton and other areas. I've made presentations just like this down there. We really want to get the word out about your hometown airport, who we are, what we have to offer, how we're coming through the pandemic, and how we plan to get through the pandemic on the other side. So there's a lot of work to do. You see the Tourism Bureau there, the Akron Summit CVB, Greg Mervis, his group lead that charge, and I'm part of their board of directors as well as the Visit Canton board. So we really want to be involved and integrated, and vice versa. We want them to understand what we do each and every day through CAK. Because ultimately, we want to be able to ensure that we have that impact on quality of life, right? Airports being in your backyard, rather than having to travel long distances after a long day of business travel. You want to be able to just travel 10 minutes to your home to be there. So we want to be able to offer that not only for leisure travel, but for a lot of the corporate business travel that we anticipate coming back. That's really what's missing these days, is the corporate travel. So we continue to talk to the GoJos and the Goodyears and the Timkins and the Keenan Advantages and the Signets of the world, and having great partners like TAB that Brian mentioned as well are really instrumental in allowing that to happen.
Your battery might be going. I'll go ahead and.
Pause, please. There we go. So our economic impact, a 2018 study with the help of Kent State University, we basically came to the report basically indicated that we generate over $1 billion in local economic impact to the region. So we know we're a huge economic generator, over 4,400 jobs back then. And then obviously the local impact to taxes and revenues to the cities of Greene and Jackson Township and entities like that. So we know we're an instrumental player in the region. So I want to talk a little bit about, kind of going back a step, about airline consolidation, kind of how the airline fleets are moving toward, and then talk a little bit about COVID and how we plan to move forward beyond COVID. So as you might imagine, consolidation over the years, and this slide's a little bit dated, but you can get the sense, a lot of mergers. There's basically 4 major airlines these days, United, American, Delta, and Southwest. And you may have heard of recent merger talk with Spirit and either JetBlue or Frontier, and where that might head and how that might impact our airports, regional airports of our own, like our own. So the consolidation really affects smaller airports than it does larger, because the larger airports just have more cash flow, if you will, more revenues and more opportunities to be flexible when it comes to mergers like that. And CAK, for all intents and purposes, while we definitely have a pulse on what's going on, we tend to be, smaller regional airports tend to be more impacted with such mergers than the larger airports. We just have limited resources, finite abilities to really have that key say and interaction with the carriers as these discussions and interactions take place. Do we have conversations with them as often as we possibly can? Absolutely. But it's really those major airports like Chicago, like Atlanta, LAX, the New York airports that really are those creams of the crop, if you will, for the airlines to be profitable. Ultimately, they want to be as profitable as they possibly can. The secondary airports, the small hub airports like CAK, tend to take a back seat. We understand that, but we try to do everything we possibly can, again, for your benefit, for the communal benefit, in those conversations that we do have, and we do have a seat at the table. So there's usually at our airports, less flights, less seat selection. You tend to have some fares that might be competitive, if you will, but in general higher, because there's less frequency, there's less operations at the airport. So the airlines tend to raise prices at the smaller hub airports, and we know that's our challenge with the likes of CLE compared to the likes of CLE in Pittsburgh and Columbus. And there's fewer airlines to go after, obviously, with the mergers. So we continue to overcome adversity, right? We continue, like I mentioned, we continue to strengthen our relationships, not only with our incumbent carriers and more especially through COVID. We had United, American, and Spirit pretty much hang through with us. Delta decided not to hang with us. And because of the US DOT ruling, they were able to consolidate their operation up to Cleveland. We fought that legally with some documentation, but it was in essence all for naught. We're still actually looking into the matter with the folks at DOT since the change of the administration, because this happened during the Trump administration. So hopefully more to come on that to allow Delta to then make a decision on whether they can come back, and this DOT secretary basically enforcing that. That remains to be seen. So we continue to have conversations with DOT. We continue to work with our new entry carriers. In the last year and a half or two, we've landed Breeze Airways. You may have heard about Legion Air was in Cleveland, and they moved their entire station, not just partial service, but their entire service thing to CAK. So we were grateful for that. And it's really helped us, being that most of the predominant form of travel these days is leisure, where pre-pandemic, it was probably a 60-40 split business to leisure. These days, it's probably 90-10 leisure to business, the other way around. So it's a huge wave. We had to pivot quickly and adjust, and having entrants come in like Breeze and entities like Jobs Ohio and support from Senator Portman and others, Senator Brown as well, to allow us to get airlines like Breeze and support for air service in our, not just Akron, Canton, but really for the entire state. That's been really helpful. So this is a slide just showing the small regional jet demand and how it's gone down to 50-seat jets. That's the bigger graph on the left. Over the years, the request and desire and demand for smaller aircraft, regional jets, has gone significantly down, which basically means larger aircraft are getting the predominant form of showing, if you will, not only at the larger airports that I alluded to, but the small regional. So our case is to prove that those larger jets that are flying out of CAK are the ones that we can fill at least to a 70, 75%, 80% capacity. That's what really allows the airlines to be profitable. So that's a challenge for us, that's a challenge for our community, right? To be able to ensure to the airlines, when we make our case for air service, that we're gonna be able to consistently fill airplanes. So the more airplanes we fill, the more service we get to the destinations that you all want to fly to. And then the upper right image there is the pilot shortage. Beyond the fuel prices that we've all seen over the last few weeks, an impact there, it's impacted our industry as much as the folks filling up a tank of gas with their car. That the pilot shortage is also something that has really hampered our industry. A lot of pilots retired during COVID, were offered furloughs, were offered severance packages, and most of them took them. So what you're having happen now is a lot of the regional airlines that operate at the small airports are being gobbled up by the Uniteds and the Americans and the larger airlines. So there's less pilots to choose from that serve the small markets like CAK and others like our size. So that's a challenge for regional airports like CAK to contend with as well, the pilot shortage. And there's also an aircraft mechanics shortage as well. So we continue to, again, have those conversations with the airlines. We continue to prepare ourselves for that eventual turn into the larger jets. How are we accommodating that growth? We recently completed the gate modernization project. Has anyone flown out of CAK since mid-2020?
Oh, yeah.
Great. Seen all the terminal improvements. Every gate has a jet bridge now. No longer you have to walk through the old wide concourse, which was really built for a different era, 1960s. And really setting the stage for that opportunity to grow and be the airport of choice for Northeast Ohio. So that picture there is one of our new gates, Gate 6, the new seats, the new plugins and the amenities, the higher ceilings, the wider concourses. We've added a lot of neat features with the gate project. And these are some of them. So there's a couple of the lower right image is a sensory room. So not a lot of folks know we have a sensory room. Folks traveling through the airport that might have kids with neurosensitive issues, i.e. autism or something along those lines, a disability like that. Or even adults that may have PTSD and just want a quiet space. We provide a sensory room for those needs. We also have a kids play area, complimentary business lounge. And a neat feature we added at the end of the project was a pet relief area. For those of you who have four-legged friends to travel with. So, and that's all on the secure side of the airport. So a lot more airports are doing that, providing those types of features and characteristics for their facility. And then we're embarking on a new restaurant as well, which is the upper left image. That's from the outside, but we plan to have a feature restaurant. We're working with a couple of companies and entities that include the Hall of Fame and a company known as Royal Docks to see if we can do either one of those entities to try to have a restaurant that features a local brand. If you go through the airport, you'll see a lot of locally branded art. The food is as local as it can possibly be. One such example is us hiring local farmers to farm some of our vacant lots outside the fence. So all of that farm is put into bales of hay. The cows eat the bale. The cow is milked, and the milk gets put back right into your, the milk that's served at the airport. And so it's a nice, well-rounded story that we're working on with Superior Dairy, for example, on that initiative. So little things like that. You see the plugins on the upper right, just the tables, just to plug in and charge. We want to make sure that we provide that, again, that seamless experience for you all that continue to travel through CAK. So ultimately, at the end of the day, even with all these improvements, even with talking to the airlines about going from the smaller jets to the larger jets and trying to get as much of the service that you all demand and want and deserve, it's very easy for an airline, and we have found this out more so during COVID, to move a piece of equipment, namely their airplanes, from one city to another, not just from CAK to CLE, but if that airline or airplane is better served in Reno, Nevada or Phoenix, Arizona, they're going to move that aircraft over there. So technically we're competing with 500 or so other airports across the country. So we understand that, and that's a challenge for regional airports of our size. Again, we also, with not only our incumbents, but our new carriers, we continue to try to reduce our operating costs. There's a metric that they use known as cost per enplanement. So the lower that number is, the better the chances of landing an airline, and that was the case with getting us Breeze Airways, again, in partnership with Jobs Ohio and the community. That was a huge win for us to get Breeze, and I'll talk about that. Collaboration with the local leaders, I'll talk about that in a little bit here. But first, COVID. COVID, as we all know, has impacted each and every one of us. And I think of the industries across the country, none has been more impacted than aviation. And we were truly decimated. These are just some snippets and articles about the airlines making severe cuts with their fleets and their pilots and severance packages and all the articles you may have read about the industry at the start. The airports just as much. We had to cut back in terms of how we provided service, and I gave the example of Delta Airlines consolidating their operations to Cleveland. It really impacted who we were as an airport at that time. And again, we were still making our mark with 835,000 passengers in 2019 pre-pandemic, and you throw this on, and obviously it hampered our ability to really recover. And we were in a good spot actually even before we announced Breeze and Allegiant coming back to CAK. That we really had an opportunity to provide really the service that we wanted. With Delta continuing to grow, and then American Airlines was actually going to make some announcements, but COVID hit, and that really allowed the industry to spiral in a downward direction. We haven't quite recovered since, and won't recover for some time. Just a graph to show of all the airlines that provide seats for the different commercial service airports. CAK was the most impacted. So this graph is just basically to say of all the seats that were available, and the far right bar that you see there, the blue bar, we were impacted the most by loss of seats in the state of Ohio. So that's the other bars are basically the other commercial service airports. So of all the, again, all of the state commercial airports, we were the most impacted, even more so than Toledo and some others. So we had to shift gears, right? I mentioned we went from a business climate to a leisure climate. So we started to, and obviously with COVID upon us, we had to quickly pivot, quickly look at what we needed to do to the facility. We started off with the social distance markers and the plexiglass and the announcements, the overhead announcements. As you come into the airport, the TSA and all of the mandates, we still even today are required to wear masks. All of you who are traveling are required to wear masks. That's right now up until April 18th, which is coming here quickly. We're not sure what's going to happen post April 18th. Stay tuned. And beyond that, we also had to have other measures, including the social, right? The social meetings, the hybrid, the hybrid meeting Zoom calls, if you will, that we had to have with socially distancing ourselves. We were thankful that we were allowed to have the construction continue of the gate expansion project, so that was able to continue in as socially distanced a way as we possibly could. And the contractors and all the folks involved really worked hard to make that happen. You see all the other things there that we had to prevent or provide rather to prevent the spread of the pandemic. And we were actually awarded an accreditation, health accreditation by an airport trade organization, Airports Consultants International. So that's a feather in the cap for our custodial team. Really did a phenomenal job, and still continues to through COVID. So I talked about the Team Neo, the Jobs Ohio effort in partnership with their local entity Team Neo to really get us to a point where we were in a position to establish air service, continue to establish air service, I should say, or augment it. So Jobs Ohio provided a $10 million air service incentive program in mid-2020, about I would say more like June and July. And all of the state airports were able to qualify and put in their documentation. We were jumping at the bit. This was something that wasn't provided for state of Ohio airports ever, whereas the states of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Indianapolis, and Indiana all had state incentive programs. So we were able to capitalize on this opportunity to basically compete with those nearby states, because airlines were always looking for those opportunities to be incentivized. And we came to the table with Jobs Ohio. They would, for every dollar that the community would put together, they would match it with $4. So it was an 80-20 split, and we again jumped on the opportunity. We reached out to over 63 entities, and they all came back and said, we're willing to partner, we're willing to contribute. Let us know how we can help. Dozens of support letters from a lot of the entities you see on the screen, and we were hoping for maybe $400,000 or $500,000 in a matter of 3 weeks. We got over $1 million in a matter of about a month or so. This was through the holidays, Christmas holiday in 2020, 2021. So huge testament to all these folks on the screen here and their dedication to allowing us to land at Breeze Airways. And that was just with 3 initial flights to Tampa, New Orleans, and Charleston. Breeze has since doubled their flights. They're now flying to Nashville, Hartford, Connecticut, and they're flying to West Palm Beach as well. And they have plans to grow because they're acquiring larger aircraft, which means longer distances. So we're talking West Coast, we're talking possibly San Juan, maybe Mexico, really that opportunity to continue to allow us to grow. So these are just some of the articles with us landing Breeze. And just wanted to give you a snapshot of where we were just before the pandemic started. 11 or so destinations pre-pandemic. You see Delta was there, the 4 carriers, American, Spirit, United as well. And then, oops, go back one. Then comes the pandemic, and we're down to 4 routes, 4 destinations. Huge detriment, huge hit on the local economy. There were days where, and I mentioned this earlier to someone, there were days there where there were more flight crew going through the checkpoints than passengers. So it was some really sad times. So we've since recovered. August, you see Delta was not on that previous slide, and in essence replaced by Breeze, and more so. You see now we're back up to 11. And then adding Allegiant really has allowed us to get to the most nonstops since we've ever had. So it's up to 17 nonstops, and we continue to have conversations with all of them. So you see a lot of the destinations to the south and to southwest, and New Orleans, and to the East Coast. So we're looking obviously to go west and having good conversations with Allegiant. Allegiant's based in Las Vegas, for example. So that tie to the Hall of Fame, they have a stadium in Las Vegas, Allegiant Stadium, where the Raiders play. So it makes a nice tie to try to get a Vegas flight, for example. We're talking about other West Coast cities like Phoenix and LAX, San Diego, Austin is another one that comes to mind in Texas. So we're getting there. There's more work to do, because ultimately this is what we want to have. This is our master plan. Okay, we need the community to support this. You see the flights. My personal one, the personal favorite, is the one that's crossing the water to San Juan. Have family there, Puerto Rican, and it'd be great to have the San Juan flight. But this is where we want to be, and we need your support and your help to get us there. So where are we headed? Post-COVID, again, I talked about the CARES Act provisions really limited our ability to negotiate with airlines in the case of Delta. But we continue to have conversations to give us a little more flexibility with airlines like Delta, as well as our existing and future carriers. So we continue to talk, continue to prepare ourselves with the gate modernization project. We have a whole West Side development that continues to be looked at, 80 acres of undeveloped land, and how do we develop that acreage? Because the more that's considered non-aeronautical revenue, the more of that we can garner, the cheaper and more flexible, if you will, it costs for the airlines to operate out of CAK. So we're trying to take as much advantage of the non-aeronautical opportunities to really improve the aeronautical relationships with our carriers. So one such effort is a renewable energy effort, basically the installation of solar farms and microgrids. It's an effort that we're working on because we know reduction of the carbon footprint is something that all airports are really being tasked with moving forward on. So we have a couple of projects in the hopper, some vacant land, aside from the 80 acres that we have available to do just that. Just things for consideration, again, electric vehicles, electric airplanes are coming, and we have to be prepared to have electric airplanes. I know it sounds a little scary what that really means, but they're coming, and we have to be prepared to accommodate electric aircraft, electric vehicles on airport property, so on and so forth, as well as some of these other things that we have to consider in a sustainable environment. See there, so. This is our west side development. This is the 80 acres of undeveloped land. I just wanted to show the yellow is all pavement that would be required. The little blue squares, blue and orange squares are new hangars that could be developed on the west side. This is closer to the Maps Air Museum, for those of you just from a geographical standpoint. Maps is kind of to the bottom right of the image. But again, we have an opportunity here. This is our airport master plan that the FAA has already approved. So it's just a matter of tweaking and getting the right investments in place to allow such efforts to take place. Ultimately, this is where we want to go with the master plan. The bright green area, I guess on the screen where it says aeronautical development smack in the middle there, that's basically that previous slide I showed you. You see the cyan color, the light blue, and some of the other colors are really areas ripe for development. So we have 2,700 acres, which is actually more than Cleveland Hopkins has. Not a lot of people know that. So what are those opportunities? How can we take advantage? Again, the more we can develop in these areas, the lower it costs for the airlines and the more attractive it is for the airlines to come to CAK. I talked about the sustainability, electric charging for vehicles, and then electric aircraft. Again, they're coming. We were able to partner. The image on the right is an image of a charging station for aircraft. There's an entity known as Beta Technologies. They're doing a lot of tests and promotion of electric aircraft. And their maiden flight is intended to go from Burlington, Vermont to about 10 stops along the way into Springfield, Ohio, and the next to last stop to Springfield. So that'll be exciting. We already have the charging station ready to go to accommodate them. We've worked with Jobs Ohio to help us install this charger. And we were expecting this to happen on Christmas time this past year, but for whatever reason, it didn't happen. A lot of it has to do with FAA rules and regs. There are really no regulations for this type of aircraft. It's kind of a jet, it's kind of a helicopter, no one really knows. So it's these things that the FAA is working, but they know it's coming. And initially, they'll likely carry cargo, right? Medical, it's flexible. You don't really need a runway to have this land and take off. You can land in the middle of a parking lot, on the top of a building, like helicopters do, on top of hospital buildings. And it can eventually be used by Uber, by Lyft. So if you're trying to get places instead of a car, you're stuck in traffic, well, you grab one of these vehicles and it takes you from one side of the city to another if you so choose. So we know it's coming and we have to be prepared for this eventuality.
We're gonna have to close it off because we're at 1 o'clock.
Okay, I have one more slide, community engagement and support. This is the last slide. Your support is crucial. If we don't have folks flying out of the airport, we don't get more service. That's the bottom line. So come to us with your data, with your supply needs and ways that we as an Akron County Airport can help. Thank you.
We do a lottery. Appreciate your help in picking a winner for me. Ready the tickets out. 228-106. 106. All right. We can do that. Now you're going to draw a card for the progressive pot, looking for the joker. So.
I'll just bring it in.
Okay. Jack of hearts, you can keep that. I'll donate this to Ukraine. Steve?
Grab the microphone here. Well, thank you, Ren. And in order to honor everybody here and everyone online, we're going to officially close the meeting and you are free to leave if you want to leave. But if you have a question or two and you'd like to share that question, you're free to stay as well. So Cheryl, if you would ring the bell, thank you everyone and have a great week. And thank you for that presentation. And any questions that maybe any of you have out here?
Please.
I worked with you, past life agents, long time customer of mine. And I thought your involvement and just it's easy to figure out ways to get by roadblocks.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Castle's a great partner, longtime partner at CAK. So appreciate the comment.
I have a question. Do you get any income from the outlying buildings that are there, or those, or do they lease from the airport?
So the buildings that are in the two industrial parks, Port Green and Port Jackson, they do lease space from the airport. We have brokers in Port Jackson. It's Delavies Properties. In Port Green, it's SB Equities. So we have an arrangement with them to collect, and then they retain a percentage, but the airport does collect some of that, yes. And then we do have probably the only chocolate factory on an airport. You guys know Fannie Mae's on airport property? Yeah. So.
Hey, I have a question regarding all the changes that COVID has brought into our world. How much does the technology like Zoom affect your industry?
It's it's been one of those things that we know has affected the industry in a detrimental way. We've established a task force with some of the bigger companies in the area, and a lot of the reason that they don't travel, for example, is the success of Zoom and MS Teams and virtual calls like the one we're having here, even a hybrid. The folks that do travel are executives, and we have corporate presence at the airport, like First Energy, Timken, James Smucker, for example, and they're all flying corporate. They're not getting in a commercial airline and flying, which is a detriment to us. It has had its advantages, obviously the ability to conduct meetings, a quick 5-minute get together rather than having to drive, 45 minutes to a meeting or something. So it has its advantages, but from a commercial and business travel standpoint, it's definitely been detrimental. And the feedback we've heard is it's here to stay. So we plan to lose probably 20 to 30% of the pre-pandemic business travel that we had. So we can understand that. So it's a big hit. 20-25%. Not all, but a good majority of those companies have given us that feedback.
Tom, those airlines approach you, or do you approach airlines for new potential partnerships?
It's both. I'm sorry. Both of us talk to one another. The airlines have air service conferences that we attend, and then we normally go to their headquarters and pitch air service where we know there's a demand. A lot of the data that we collect from travel habits, secondary homes, if there's Florida City or even secondary homes somewhere else, we share that information with the airlines, and it's a good collaboration, but it's definitely mutual. It's more us going to those conferences and really sharing our story, because again, there's a lot of COVID pandemic restrictions on us having the ability to visit them at their airports. Some have said, no, we're not quite ready yet. And then others are like, yeah, come meet us at a conference and we can chat and sit for 20 minutes.
Susan, do you have a question?
No, I was just going to say, one good thing is that you can't vacation virtually. So maybe you and Kima's need to pair up and, just exploit the possibilities for vacations.
Yeah, the leisure side of it has not been an issue. We've been very fortunate, and that's really what's been sustaining us is the leisure travel these days. It's really getting the business traveler to realize that, having a handshake, meeting someone face to face is so invaluable rather than, a Zoom or an MS Teams call. But it's been a challenge.
So you mentioned on the electric aircraft and the personal, travel from one side of the city to the other. I mean, what do you see? I mean, like I know Tesla cars only go 340 miles. I mean, so an aircraft.
Yeah.
It seems like it's all gonna be big city type stuff. Is that what you foresee right now?
I would imagine, yes, large cities to start, 15-minute ride here or there, and then it gets extended based on battery life. And there's a lot of these pieces of equipment will basically have battery storage, right? Just like the electric vehicles do. So obviously the last thing you want is to be 10 minutes from the destination and then see the battery gauge down to a quarter full. How do you rectify that? So they're working through those issues. And I think the biggest issue above that, I think that's more of a technological problem, right, that will be solved. It's getting through the FAA's rules and regs for what we call low altitude vehicular travel. other than what's being done today with helicopters and even some drone activity. That's, I think, a bigger challenge.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ren. I've always been curious about airline departure times, how the airlines choose different departure times. Does it have to do, like, are sometimes more expensive than others? I know a lot has to do with like figuring out connection times and things like that. But the fact that, like, if I may just vent for a moment, Spirit Airlines would add, what is it, like a 7:55 p.m. flight from Akron to Orlando, getting into Orlando at like 9:30 p.m. It's not really the clear connection. There's no other, it's the one flight of the day. Just kind of curious, like, why they chose that.
It's really on the airlines to answer that question, but what we pitch to them always and consistently, Brian, is we don't want a traveler to lose their full day by getting into Orlando at 9 o'clock at night. That defeats the purpose of going to such a destination like Orlando with the family, right? You're getting there with 3 or 4 individuals, now you have to rent a car, you have to go to a hotel. By the time you're all said and done, it's close to 11 o'clock at night. That's what we want as customer service for what we think is that preferred experience for CAK, absolutely not. So whenever we have the opportunity to go to headquarters or to talk to them at the air service conferences, the first thing is, okay, let's talk about existing air service. Why are you flying into Orlando and getting it at 9 something p.m.? That's the first piece of conversation that we have with them. So work in progress. We understand that that's an issue for Orlando. There are other cities that we fly to like that. And then you couple that with delays now due to fuel and pilot shortages and all the talk of mergers, and it just, it confounds the matter. But definitely it's something that we consistently talk about to the airlines.
So another question along, probably maybe best for the airlines, but with trying to pick up these other cities that you're looking for, how do we express as consumers a desire to go to certain destinations?
Obviously, social media is one way to do that. So if there are organizations and clusters of organizations that allow us to promote a certain market, and that coupled with, I had it on the last slide, if you have a business that's growing, that's changing, you have a sister city, so to speak, where it makes the most sense to establish air service. If you have secondary homes, that's the type of data that we need, right? That's more leisure, that's more of folks wanting to get away and have a respite for a long 4-day weekend or something. For the business side, we just need enough folks to basically fill up an airplane, right, on a consistent basis. Even if it's one time a day, hopefully it's not getting to a city at 9:50 at night. If it's getting there at noon, you have the rest of the data to really do what you need to do, business needs to conduct, and hopefully there's a return flight that same day if you're just a doing a one-day business travel sort of thing. But that I think is the data and the information that we need. And all the information that we would share is confidential. So if you're a little skeptical rather, as far as what the type of info that could be shared, just know that it's confidential. We would share it only with the airline in question that really has the most to gain from flying to a certain city.
Thank you. Any other questions? Cheryl, anybody online?
No one online, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.